What is going on, internet world? This is Cairo Leslie, and on today's episode of Good for the Game, we have a very special guest. I am going to be joined by the legend of poker, the greatest tournament player, my friend, Mr. Positivity himself, Phil Hellmuth, everybody. What's going on, Phil?
Not much. I'm here in Vegas. It looks like my friend, the old school legend Miami John, tweeted out something last night about finishing fourth, and today was a deuce to seven triple draw tournament at Caesar's Palace, $500 buy-in, and I'm like, I came to town to practice. Now I'm a little tired. Okay, I literally filmed Friday through Thursday, then flew to Vegas. Then I had the mic 10 hours on Saturday. So Sunday I kind of shut it down and rested. So,
Well,
you got to be careful, make sure your energy's right,
That is the number one performance enhancing drug in poker is sleep.
I
Uh,
agree.
it's the best thing to have. We're super excited to have you on the second episode of Good for the Game because if nobody else is good for the game, Phil Hellmuth, one of the number one people that has been good for the game of poker. I want to kick this off. I did see you recently with Dewey doing a tribute to Doyle Brunson. Can you give me your thoughts? How are you feeling? I know you recently lost, one of the greats and a very close friend. Could you tell me a little bit more about your guys' relationship?
I mean, I always kind of felt like Doyle was me, right? Like we were cut from the same cloth. He he played great poker right until he was 89 years old. He started playing great poker in his 20s. And so I was like, all right, we're cut from the same cloth. Luckily, and then it's turned out to be, somewhat true, except Doyle was the boss gambler. You know, I mean, when you heard Dewey talk about how he made $180 million on the golf course, that's more than Tiger Woods. That's more than Tiger Woods golfing. It was staggering. Um, this is the first interview I've done since we put this out, since Doyle died. And, Doyle, the boss gambler, amazing for poker. He brought a lot of energy. He brought a lot of, the insiders know, everybody kind of knows that, Doyle hated losing like me.
Yeah.
So he gets upset a lot when, but in the private rooms, he didn't, and, but I love that passion. I have that same passion. And I guess the difference is when I get upset, I'm on a live stream somewhere and the whole world sees it, or ESPN is waiting for me to lose it. It's a different kind of losing it. I'll just, Doyle would just be like, your body.
Yeah, and one of the things you and Dewey talked about on that interview was not only that he was the boss gambler, but he was like the king of arbitration in the poker world because his reputation was flawless. 50 years of poker with a flawless reputation. What does that value bring to his legacy when it comes to reputation?
It's massive. I mean, that's what I thought of at the top of, I was thinking, what am I going to say about Doyle tomorrow when I talk to Dewey? At the very top of the list is reputation, right? And maintaining a perfect reputation is important, but you don't see it as often. You know what I mean? I'd like to think my reputation's perfect. They were mad at me for ultimate bet for a minute. Then the tapes came out and cleared me. But that involves, like, I just took the worst of it in a big bet. And what stuck out to me in that interview is when Dewey said Doyle always took the worst of it. And I thought, man, oh man, I always take the worst of it. If it's close, I just pay them. And so a lot of poker players have, kind of taken advantage of Doyle and me and the history of our relationship. But, Doyle, 50 years of perfect reputation, 50 years at the top, 50 years being the boss gambler. And my hat's off to Doyle. Even at age 89, he bluffed me a big pot on the World Poker Tour show, and that clip went viral. just nothing but respect for Doyle.
Yeah, and one of his favorite quotes of mine was "Poker is war. People pretend it's a game." And one of my favorite quotes of yours: "If there weren't luck involved, I would win every time."
Yeah, I mean, there's an element of war to it, and and nobody was better, at that war than when Doyle, and one of our all-time legends.
Yeah, and for me personally, and a lot of viewers watching, we watched you and Doyle battle it out on TV, in these classic televised shows. What was it like playing against him at the table?
I mean, he ended up in the long run. I think Doyle did well against me in poker. I do remember the authors tournament where, the World Poker Tour authors tournament where it came like King 4 and I had 2 8s and I called him on and he had Ace 5 and he hit an ace on me. That one hurt, even though there wasn't much money involved. But Doyle, just a stud from start to finish. And he was basically a professional poker player for 60 some years.
Yeah, and he's going to be deeply missed. I don't think the legacy of Doyle Brunson in poker history will ever be removed. Without him, I don't think the game would be as great as it is today. As the game is great today, I know you are in Vegas. We have World Series coming up around the corner. How are you preparing for this, and what are your predictions for this year?
I don't make predictions. I just try to get ready to play. So I came a little bit early this year. I had to MC an event at Aria on Saturday, like I said, 10 hours on the mic. And, today, so I basically, have 4 or 5 phone calls I have to take today. And then once the World Series starts, I take 0 phone calls. My business partners, no. Companies I advise, CEOs, no. I just won't take any calls. And because it's time to just fully immerse myself in poker. Right now I'm still doing, Phil Galfond said something about this the other day, that he does worse when he mixes business and poker. I learned that a long time ago and agree with Phil 100%. So for me, it's about just staying focused on poker. So today, with that tournament I mentioned, it's Caesars $500 bind. It seems like it's deuce to 7 limit. It's a good opportunity for me to practice a game, and I'll go do that. But it's a very kind of easy week for me.
Yeah,
I'm trying to take it easy on myself. Normally, I'd really be into the basketball games, but it looks like
Golden State got taken down by the big Lakers.
Yes, but also 3-0, 3-0. It doesn't look like it's as competitive right now, so the games aren't as compelling to watch.
Well, Game 4 tickets are very cheap for the Lakers right now, but I am going to avoid that subject. One of my favorite things about the World Series of Poker, Phil, are your entrances, and nobody is able to predict what you're going to do. I want to bring up some images. We have Fighter, Phil Hellmuth right here. We have, I believe this is Avengers, Phil.
Thor.
We have Race Car Phil. When you came in with the ladies.
That was the first one.
That is the first one. We have Gandalf Hellmuth. The wizardry that you are, white magic, as I've been told. And
Gandalf the White
Magician. I think this was last year, correct? The Darth Vader?
Yeah, I think that was my worst one. But, Caesars really wants me to do this entrance, and which is great. I love their support, and they think it's good for the game. And so, usually my sponsors want me to do it,
Yeah, there you go. Speaking of Caesars.
Yeah, that had to be my favorite entrance. I was probably, even Norman Shedd complimented me for, looking like muscular. Norman Shedd never compliments me, so
it's not a very easy compliment to get. But yeah, I mean, I know you're not going to let the cat out the bag, but you have something big planned for this year?
No, nothing's planned.
All right. Well, the costume shops are open in Vegas.
They
If you
are,
ever too.
and I know there's 2 or 3 I was thinking about, but luckily I can't even think of them right now. So who knows what I'll come in as? But
I'm crossing my fingers that you come in as Goku this year. The Super Saiyan hair, you do the full power up and charge, and that would be I think if not this year, but in the future at some point, when you do the Goku. That is my hopes that you do that for
Jungle
me.
Man wants me to do something together, and I like that
Oh,
idea.
the wrestler thing we talked about.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know what it'll be, but Jungle Man and I are talking about, like, I think that would be fun to come in as 2 characters.
Yeah, I mean, if you did the outfit change for entrances for multiple days, I mean, it only adds to the excitement that is the WSOP. You guys bring, especially Jungle Man. I love that you bring him up because his personas on stream are legendary. They just besides VPIP or how somebody plays, just the level of entertainment you guys bring with the characters adds that level of buzz to the room. And I think that's a good segue into this next one. You've been around poker for such a long time, Phil. You've seen a lot of people, rise to fame, riches, and you've also seen people lose it all from money to their reputations. Um, I don't want to necessarily bring anybody up by name directly, but do you still talk to some of these players that were massively big in the early 2000s and the 90s that you played with, and maybe for some of these players that their reputations aren't as polished as they were then now, do they still keep in contact with you? And what is your take on some of these players?
I don't. So I mean, so you're asking, do I still talk to the people that got in trouble?
Maybe like the people who got in trouble.
Let me just answer it 2 ways, because you also said old school legends. I mean, most old school legends aren't in any trouble at all.
No.
And yesterday I saw Johnny Chan, and we took some pictures. Saturday I saw Johnny Chan, and we took some pictures and put them out together. And a lot of the old school legends, whenever I see them, it's really nice to see them.
Yeah, it's good to see you there with Chan and Brunson.
Yeah, that was when I passed them, and I think that was 07, that picture.
Yeah.
That's when I went to bracelet number 11. They were both on 10. It was a great race. I mean, it just consumed the poker press 03, 04, 05. I mean, I think 03 between us, we won, it might be an exaggeration, 5 bracelets or something. And then in 05, we won like 3 or 4 or 5 bracelets again. I mean, just some crazy numbers of the 3 of us just winning bracelet, and just passing each other. And, do I talk to old school players that got in trouble?
Maybe like the Black Friday situation with Full Tilt. I know when we last hung out personally, I asked you about like Gus Hansen. You're very close with Russ Hamilton or like Annie Duke or like some of those players.
Annie's killing it on the East Coast right now. I haven't texted her in a while. Who else did you say?
Gus Hansen.
We still see Gus Hansen. He comes in and plays high stakes poker sometimes. It's been a while. With the pandemic, I don't see everybody all the time. And some of the guys, like Chris Ferguson, who
he was Jesus.
I mean, to me, everybody condemned. What did he do? And he wouldn't apologize because he's like, Phil, I didn't do anything wrong, and he wouldn't apologize. And then everybody condemned him more. It was just like, what is going on here? Like, I mean, what did he do? Tell me what he did. You tell me what he did,
Yeah, with the whole Full Tilt situation, I think it was just a lot of players' money getting locked up.
But that all got released?
It did, yeah, it did. It just took, I think mainly for the reputation, it just took some time.
So it was his fault that the U.S. government took the money?
I don't think so personally. I think the situation was just a messy one. And, these are the people that at their prime were like the biggest names in poker. And, we just don't get to see them like let's say yourself out there on poker streams today. And like maybe the newer generation of poker players just, they fall on taking a backseat to the modern, entertainment that is poker.
We still you still see a ton of Negreanu. You know, he's
We
kind of, to
do.
me, old school and new school, you know?
Do you think that in today's day and age that like social media has changed what it's like to be a poker player and the accountability that comes with it?
I think that I think it's interesting because I saw this yesterday. Old school movie stars were like treated like kings. They were elegant, right? And new school movie stars, it's a lot different, right? So old school poker players, I mean, like, I don't know, I'm treated like a king everywhere I go. It's crazy.
You
I
are you
recognize
are a
them,
guest anywhere you go in the poker world.
but everywhere I go, you know, it's kind of crazy. Like if I go to the Kentucky Derby, if I go wherever I go, it's kind of a crazy it's kind of a crazy existence, you know. I think that you know, being married for, geez, how many years has it been, honey? Well, she'll never watch this, so I'm safe. But like almost 33, I think 33 years we've been married. And, you know, I think that's very grounding for me because my normal line, I travel with billionaires. I get treated like kings everywhere I go. Like, it's just kind of this, I play this super high stakes stuff. I'm on private planes all the time. And so hang out with some of the world's, you know, most interesting people, some of the world's richest people. And so it's like, this is my normal. And then my wife, she's a doctor. So her normal, you know, she sees sick people all the time. So her normal is down here, right? And, you know, and so she's, you know, we really balance each other out. She can tell me when I'm being ridiculous. Honey, your
We
ego's.
would love to hear some of those conversations when you're tilting to have your wife call you about being ridiculous, you know. But even like in our last interaction or one of our last interactions at live at the bike, I think it was interesting to be around you in person when you're actually tilted and then see you be humble, go back, shake everybody's hand. We'll actually get into that in a bit because I do have some video I want to go over. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Make sure you guys are pumping in those questions as I'm reading them. I'll try to pull in the best ones that I can see. Phil, I have a scenario for you. Is there anyone in the poker world that you feel like you couldn't beat in a heads up match? I know you are a very astute heads up player. And do you think people have given you enough credit for how well you have played over time in your heads up matches?
Well, I won the first NBC Heads Up Championship in 2005 against all the old school legends. And the last time I had the NBC Heads Up Championship in 2013, I got heads up with Mike the Mouth. I remember that he had what was it, an 8-outer for all the money, where I was going to have the chip lead, and I think I'm going to beat him. So I finished second in that one. And then what did I finish? 9-2 in the matches against the world's greatest players. So, I mean, I think when you're talking about heads up, if we're playing the format that we played,
yeah,
I like my chances. I think it's very hard for anybody on the planet to beat me. Very hard. And the reason why is I have reading abilities, and then I have time, you know. And when time is on your side, like, it was ridiculous. Like, they kept saying Antonio was a 2-1 favorite over me, then 3-2 favorite, then 3-2 favorite. And like, it was every match I was in, they said I was an underdog. And I was laughing. I'm like, oh my God, don't they know that I'm like, it was really ridiculous. I think I was 24-1. If you take Kerry Katz out of there, I was 24-1. I'd won a heads up championship on the East Coast, just flew out there, and there was like 128 players, won that. That was like maybe in 2019 or something, the last heads up tournament I played in, I won. So, you know, when you have a lot of time to work and you have great reading abilities, it's very difficult because I can fold super strong hands, they can't. I can make great calls, they can't. And so I'm not saying that other players can't do that, but I can consistently do that. So when I'm on, I'm just really tough in these heads up matches. And that comes down to reading ability. So yeah, I feel very confident when I play heads up. No limit hold'em against anybody. And, you know, I mean, I think I have, what do I have? 13 world championships in Texas Hold'em. and the game just makes sense to me. So I'm tough when it comes to heads up, and so if it were just pure math, then I wouldn't be very good. But heads up is about knowing what the other player has, and so.
And you not to cut you off, but you are regarded for your reading ability. I believe Annie once said that you had the best ability to spot weak players at a table, and not just check when somebody's strong, but really an ability to use your feel. Matt Berkey recently said in an interview with Poker.org that field players are basically dead. Playing with feel is playing without strategy. Would you agree with that statement?
That's the beautiful thing, That's the beautiful thing about poker. Berkey has a theory and an opinion, and then I have a theory and opinion, and and we see who's right. I think if you look at the last 18 months in poker, the last 2 years, whatever it's been, I have 18 top 9 finishes in World Series of Poker and the U.S. Poker Open, two of the most important tournaments we have. And so maybe I played 100 tournaments. I look back, I think it's less than 100. And so I kind of have the best record of anybody in the world over that stretch. But people will say that I can't win in this tournament, I can't win in that tournament. Like, there's critics all the time, right? The evidence is right there. 18 top 9s in the last 2 years in WSOP. And so people ignore that, and all they see is the weaknesses, right? So someone like Matt Berkey, who I have respect for, and I think is a really good player, and actually he's a really good human being, which is why I've invited him to my streams. But he does not, he looks at poker through a prism and a lens, right? And then a lot of people look at poker through a prism and a lens, and they see me play a heads up match, and they say, what Phil's doing does not make sense. The commentators, 14 times I made a big re-raise with random cards, 14 times. My opponent folded 13 times. I made those raises because I'm not playing my cards, I'm playing his cards. I didn't think he could call the re-raise. So I got away with, and the people in the booth are like, well, I'm not sure, was that just luck? Huh? So, I mean, that's the beautiful thing, is that I can go out there and continue to do this pretty cool stuff in poker, put up these results, and then people don't understand it. So instead they condemn it. Right. Oh, field players don't make sense. Do you think, if you look at the mixed games, you look at Daniel Negreanu's $25,000 buy-in, like, I'm number one by far, right? Over 10 years, whatever it is, I'm way, way up here. No one's even close to me. But no one ever talks about that. So do you think in mixed games that it's about feel? Mixed games are about math, but what they don't understand is you can adjust your strategy in a mixed game. So let's just say that I have a hand that everybody is supposed to play. Okay. Right. And someone raises, and I'm like, oh my God, they are super, super, super strong. Everybody else plays this hand. I know it's the right mathematical move to play this hand unless I'm against this hand. So then I can make a fold. Likewise, someone makes a fold, they seem very weak to me, and I have a hand which is right in the borderline of playable, and I decide to play it, And so that ability to understand what other people have obviously impacts game theory at its most basic level. Right. But it's almost like a whole generation of poker players doesn't understand that reading ability exists. And so, we'll just see what happens. They told me I couldn't do it in 2010. And then I went on the biggest run in poker history. They told me I couldn't do it. And they always keep telling me I can't do it. Just because you don't understand what's happening. The difference is if I don't understand how someone's getting there all the time, I know that person's a great player.
Yeah. So you're attributing this to the feel of poker versus let's say the GTO theory of today. Because it's interesting that you brought up Negreanu, because in the modern times you guys did play heads up. and he went full GTO in his training, and you kind of like debunked that in a way that, you know, you still used your feel or your reading abilities to get the best of him in that situation.
Here's the difference. Daniel Negreanu is a great poker player. Daniel Negreanu is one of the most talented poker players. To me, not using his reading ability to the fullest for a year or two there, or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, was a mistake. But then he'll say, well, Hellmuth made a mistake by not paying enough attention to whatever everybody else is doing. And so, you know, Daniel's occasionally called me delusional, and I've occasionally called him delusional, but I recognize his talent. And now Daniel's shifted away from what he was doing before. And what does he do? He goes and wins the $300,000 super high roller. So, and he changed a few things. You know, all of a sudden he's limping. But Daniel told me limping was horrendous for 10 years. He'd probably deny he said it, but he did. And all of a sudden now, my strategy of limping is pimping, as he said. So,
Limping is pimping.
You know, it's just like, I did see someone in the chat say that they got yelled at for saying that I'm the greatest World Series of Poker tournament player in the world. Negreanu says I'm the greatest World Series
we'll pull that up. It was
player
poker
of all time.
Poker Pro Eric. Why did I get yelled at last night in the poker spaces for saying Phil's the best WSOP tournament player ever? Sheesh.
Everybody says that. And now at least Negreanu, I have everybody, even my haters, say I am the greatest World Series of Poker tournament player in history. Because my record is just, I'm a little speck way above. Like what I've done there, at least they can't deny that. And so they try to take everything else away. But even Negreanu said that. So I'm surprised he got yelled at for spaces.
Yeah, and you know, I don't want to say that you debunked GTO, but you know, there is you know, what Berkey was alluding to when I first asked this question, that field players are dead. And I think what, to summarize, you're saying is field players will never die.
You see, because there's layers to it, right? If Berkey's saying someone just plays on feel, all right, then you know he has a little bit of a point. So I can't dispute that.
Okay.
But if you understand the math and you're a field player, then you know, then you're going to be one of the greatest. There's just not many people out there on the planet that have the ability to understand, you know, to read people at the highest levels.
Yeah. Would you say that, you know, when you first learned poker and you won your first bracelet in 1989, we were living in a pre-GTO era, and now that we're in the post-GTO era, what were like some of the difficulties for you? And Doyle said this too, that, you know, you guys had to go through so many things to learn what GTO players are learning now through just courses, YouTube videos, and online content in a matter of, you know, weeks and months, which you guys took years to learn. Do you think that's hindering the game now for players, that they're not going through it, or do you think it's helping the game for players?
It's helping the game, but let's make one thing clear. What Doyle and I were referring to wasn't GTO. What we were referring to is getting a level of experience. It took us a long time to play 10,000 hands, right? And some of these guys passed us in the amount of hands they played, you know, very quickly. And so then they're like, oh, we played more hands than you, we're better than you. And so they did pick up a lot, so we give them that. But now when you're talking about GTO, I'm not commenting on GTO. I'll just say this. If people are teaching people to play the game wrong, you know, which I think they are, then that's really great for someone like me. If I play it right? Like,
right.
You know, maybe I'm delusional. Maybe I'm just getting lucky these last, you know, maybe I've just been lucky these last.
They say it's better to be lucky than to be skilled. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
most players would rather be lucky.
You know?
Speaking of lucky, let's go into another theory. If you were to stop playing poker today, which we know you're not going to, but let's imagine in a very hypothetical world, Phil Hellmuth doesn't play poker today. What is one player that you would trust with your bankroll to play for you?
Depends on the game, right? I trust. I'm mad at Mike the Mouth Mattisau right now, but would I trust him to play my money? Yes, because his winning percentage is very high.
That's good. There you go, Mike the Mouth. I know you guys are, you guys have been close as everything. I know you've been with him through all his up and downs through the year too, and that's been a solid friendship. That's probably made you a better player over time as well. One of the most before we get into that, I actually want to speak about this next generation of poker some more. You had a situation with Tom Dwan where you guys were playing heads up, and you made a quick prediction about Tom Dwan. I want to bring this video up real quick, and we will react to it.
We'll play as
You
many
admit it was
matches as you
terrible,
want.
right?
We will play as many matches as you want.
Do you
Phil.
admit it was a terrible play on your part?
No, it's standard. Learn to play heads up,
Standard
no
play
limit.
with 1 in 53 blinds, 20,000?
Learn to play heads up, no limit.
We'll see if
We'll
you're
play
even
as
around
many
in
matches as
5
you
years.
want.
We'll see if you're even around in 5 years.
Maybe I won't
That's
be.
the truth. I don't think you will be, to be honest.
The gloves have come
man.
off.
It's an easy lay down for you, actually.
In the clip, Phil, you predicted that Tom Dwan might not be around in 5 years. Obviously, he's still wrong and kicking live. What do you think about this newer generation of poker players? I feel like it started with Tom Dwan, especially with online play, and where they stand today as the game of poker evolves.
First of all, Tom Dwan and I are good friends. I went by his. I've been to the nightclub with him a couple of times. We've spent some time. I like him, and we get along really well. I invited him as the third player to play with Mr. Beast and I, and so, I just watched the clip. I don't think I predicted he would. I don't know. Maybe
the statement was, "Let's see if you'll be around in 5 years."
I said you might not be around in 5 years. Is what I thought I said.
Yeah. So not so much a prediction. I used the wrong word. It was just a statement in a tilted moment.
I think if you're going to put 63 big blinds in with pocket tens, that was not standard at the time, but it was more standard for the internet. So he was right, but it was not standard for the real world. And I had aces that hand, and I think he hit a 10 on the turn. So
He did.
I was tilted. Yeah. As far as some of the other, there's a lot of great players. You're asking about the next generation.
Yeah, like you brought up Mr. Beast, who's evolving the game by playing on these streams and ushering the game. Nick Austin.
Do you want me to answer the question about the next generation, or you want to talk about Mr. Beast? I'm good with either.
Oh, both. I include him in that.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No, I would say that when it comes to the next generation, there's a lot of players that have tremendous talent out there. Tremendous talent. I tend to respect the guys that have won bracelets, but Alex Foxen, what he's doing right now is amazing. He's playing. The last few times I played with him, he's literally playing 50% of the hands, and that's a tremendous talent to have. Let's see. There's some other guys out there. Some of the young guys that have won bracelets. I think of the kid from Spain. Help me with names.
Are you talking about Jordy? Or are you talking about recent wins?
There's some great young players out there, I think, and a ton of them. And I think and I think that I'm sorry I can't remember the names. I wasn't expecting this question, but I will say that there's a bunch of great young players out there. But I think I disagree with you. I don't think the next generation started in 2004 or 5 with Tom Dwan, or 6 or whatever it was. I think that generation. I think that every 5 years there's a new generation. Every 4 years there's a new generation. I will say this: there were guys in 2009 that I said they won't be around. A bunch of them, and people said, "Oh no, he's the greatest player of our generation," and they were broke a year later. A bunch of guys. Look back at the guys that won tournaments. Look back at all the flash in the pans that we've had in poker, came along and everyone said, oh no, they're great. They're going to be around forever.
Yeah.
And, you know, you look and 90% of them have disappeared. It's not, having longevity in the game is not easy.
Yeah, when I think of like today's, that was the next generation then, but the next generation now, we have our Marianos, we have our Rampages, Brad Owen, you know, creating YouTube content. Me and you recently played with Nick Austin, who's like 21, 22. What are your thoughts on some of these younger YouTube content poker creators?
Yeah, I think it's great. I really enjoyed my time with Nick. You know, I mean, this is a really cool kid. What is he, 22?
Yeah, 22. Yeah, it was fun playing.
He handled himself so well. We drove down to a charity event tomorrow. We drove down last couple weeks ago to a charity tournament in a car. Spent an hour in the car, an hour back, and we even played some poker afterwards. And he's just a very pleasant guy who's fun to be around, smart, talented, and now to switch to Mr. Beast, like he is just, this could end up being like Oprah Winfrey of our time, you know, people that change the world more than any other single human being, you know. And so to watch, and I think what he's doing is, I think that he's probably the best influence in the world right now, Mr. Beast. And,
I would agree.
And I have so much respect for him. And he came to my house, slept over at my house. We played some heads up tournaments, played a bunch of heads up on my kitchen table. We played a bunch of heads up in Vegas. He's still ahead of me, lifetime heads up. But when we got into like 8-handed games, then I got my money back.
Yeah, you know, I think he's helping draw eyes on the game of poker. You also have the, like,
Let me be clear. This next generation of people are amazing for the game. Amazing for the game. Ryan Feldman running his live stream at Hustler is amazing for the game. We had a game. We have our own stream at Hustler. You know, Bally's had Live at the Bike, which is gone now, but they're restarting something up. All of these live streams, PokerNet America, all of these live streams are great for poker. They're great for the game, and all of these poker influencers are also great for the game. And some cater to smaller stakes, and some cater to higher stakes, and some cater to online. And so I think poker's at an amazing place right now, and my hat's off to all of these guys that are, you know, just doing great work, you know, and so I'm proud to see poker, you know, just on this massive upswing. And, you know, people come up to me all the time, you know, in airports, you know, everywhere I go, people come up, you know, and all right, maybe I'm walking around with a gold hat on and I'm tall and I walk with a little swagger.
Very
right?
tall.
So like, is that a basketball player? Is that like a singer? No. Is that a whatever? Right. And then, you know, and, oh no, that's Hellmuth. And so they come up and these like, and I ask, and some people come up and they're like, you're my biggest idol in the world. You're who I aspire to be. And I say, how old are you? I'm your biggest fan, they say. How old are you? 20. I'm like, well, you're not my biggest fan because you didn't know I existed 6 years ago. But it's amazing.
You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised.
It's amazing to me.
I was personally watching you before I was even a teenager. You know, on Poker After Dark and a lot of these TV shows, you know, a lot of us start watching very young. We don't get an opportunity to start playing till like high school, college, but, you know, we're playing for pennies and nickels as kids, you know what I mean? And we were watching you very, very young.
It's a good point. But what I've noticed is all these people between 18 and 25, it's just amazing. This generation just loves poker. Why? So as near as I could figure out is during the pandemic, you know, people connected around and through poker. There was no school, there was no classes, and, you know, they could play online with each other. They could get together and go to somebody else's house to play. And so poker just had we were expecting a reboom, and bang, bang, you know, poker's just exploded again. And, you know, I'm just really happy to be a part of the poker world.
as we are to have you in it, Phil.
And I will tell you this: you're a positive guy like me. You know, these stories, some of these negativity stories. You know, they find 1% of the poker world or 2% of the poker world, and what goes public, the 1 or the 2%. They don't talk about, you know, the 95%. They don't talk about the 70% of the poker world, which is really good people, you know, that do things right, that live the right way. And so we're just not getting that bounce, you know, that we should. All these nice guys in poker, all these good people in poker. Who's getting the press? Some of this negative stuff. And I'm kind of sick of it, you know. I'm stamping the poker world positivity, 90%, you know, 70% just nice people, good people.
Yeah, and
and really 90% of the people don't do anything wrong.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. You already know if nobody loves you, Phil, Carl loves you. I'm all about preaching love. You're about preaching positivity. The drama that is poker and the negative stories, I feel, are sometimes very relevant topics, though, because there's a certain level of needing or the responsibility to protect players in this game. And, you know, there is especially with online, you brought up during the pandemic, a lot of people started playing online. And that's one of the places that people need to hold operators accountable. As I was talking to Berkey about this last week, right now we're in the midst of a very big scandal with ACR and Ali Mircevic. Have you caught wind of that story?
I followed that story. It's interesting with Twitter. You know, when Elon bought Twitter, you know, I mean, I know why he bought it. I mean, you know, I get time with Elon and Elon Musk, and one of my friends is his best friend. And, you know, he bought it. He really wanted to help society. He really wanted free speech. And so before he bought it, I guess the Republicans hated him, and now the Democrats hate him, and hate. And you brought up a story, an ACR story, and, you know, I just don't want to. That's fine, and it's important for you to, you know, to talk about that stuff. But, you know, I'd prefer that everybody else talk about that stuff, and I'd like to stay and talk about the positive stuff.
I feel you. You know, I understand your stance on it. I think with online poker, the moral for the story that I really want to be out there is people really protect themselves. There are things out there to be aware of. And we'll see as that story develops. Another fun thing on the internet is in the poker world is Doug Polk. And Doug Polk creating content about other poker players. What has been your reception of Doug Polk making videos about you?
Well, I think Doug Polk could be massive. I think he could be massive. But I think he's gone for the clickbait in the past, right? I almost fell out of my chair when Doug said, I'm mad at you, Berkey, because you said this about my club. You lied about my club, and I have people working for me. You lied about my business. I almost fell out of my chair because Doug has written stuff that's, you know, I'm not going to say lies, but stuff's very close to untruth. It's like watching Fox News, right? Or you watch CNN. If you're a reasonable person like me, you watch Fox News and you're like, what the fuck? You watch CNN and you're like, what the fuck? Because they present one side of the story and you're thinking, what about the other side? You're not even going to talk about it. And so, you know, Doug Polk is a little bit of fake news, and you know, and but I really like him, and I think he's really good for the game. But if he just like, you can't attack people like he does with half truths and then play the moral high ground. And so all the reasonable people in poker just were laughing. What did you say, Doug? Really? Come on. You know, so Doug is great for the game, for sure. But I mean, I just wish that he would just stick to the whole truth, and then he would be massive.
The whole truth and nothing but the truth. I want to take a question, not a question, but more of a comment from the chat. We have Matthew Culp saying Musk and Hellmuth. I would love a night out with the both of them. What have you and Elon done while hanging out?
I mean, like, you know, I've been in Italy with him. I've been in Mexico with him. But, you know, sometimes it's just fun just to, like, have a few tequilas with him in a room, and I mean, just like, he's amazing. Like, I think he's, to me, the only guy that trumps Mr. Beast is Elon Musk, right? And that's great. It's a great place for Mr. Beast to be, because he's amongst those 4 or 5 people that are really changing humanity. But Elon might be changing humanity more than anybody else. I mean, this is a guy that's trying to make us an interplanetary species. I mean, it's incredible, and so I just have, and he just takes on big project after big project after big project. And, I know my son bought a Tesla, and Negreanu loves his Tesla in the poker world. And he's just an impressive guy.
I love the chat room's loving the Fox News references. And he is very impressive, sending cars into space, trying to work with free speech. And then, hopefully he could take poker to other planets. We could start, evolving the game to Mars. That could be the next move. Phil Hellmuth live stream from a different planet. I think that would make a lot of sense.
One of my friends I was playing with one of my friends, and we have this great game, and I'm not allowed to talk about names anymore, but my friend's like, yeah, he's like, well, I'll host the first poker game on a space station. Well, I'll just fly up and we'll play high stakes poker. And I was like, no, this is cool.
Zero gravity all-ins would be amazing.
I think we can turn the gravity on for the poker.
If that's an option, the Jetsons predicted everything, so hopefully we're getting closer and closer to there. I do want to move on to some more topics. Garrett Adelstein was recently criticized about controlling lineups, and it kind of negatively affected his career. He's still probably a great player. I don't know how much he's playing as of today. But what is your take on him determining lineups for live poker streams?
I mean, I have influence whenever I film. I can choose whoever I want to play in the stream, and so so for me personally, I can't criticize. And I think there's people that are better for the stream, and I think there's people that are worse for the stream, and as far as banning people, I had there's only 1 or 2 people on the planet that I would have considered banning. One of them was Nick Airball, and I just didn't want to play with him because he was so we played once here at the Ari, and he was so disrespectful, and I'm just like, who are you? Like, what are you like? Why you want to come to the Ari and you want to talk to me like that? So I said, all right, I'll never film with him. I told Ryan I'll never film with him again. And Nick and Ryan didn't even try to convince me for the Hustler stream. But who called me was Nick Vertucci, and Nick said, Phil, he has a good heart, and you should play with him. And I said, listen, I just don't want to go on. I don't want to go on one more stream and have somebody just. I don't want to be attacked. Like, you want to attack me for reasonable stuff, fine. But I want to go on one more stream and listen to some loudmouth attack me, Right. And so I was like, and Nick's like, no. And I said, all right, well, I will film with him. So, so he was one guy who I really didn't want to film with. And then, sure enough, they convinced me to film with them, and Nick Airball was fine.
Yeah. Did you end up having fun playing with him?
Well, I mean, that was the worst stream of my life that day. Had nothing to do with Nick, and he came outside to check on me when I was outside steaming. I lost 40,000, but I gave away 50,000, and I was just so tired. I had been in Korea, then I went to Mississippi to film with John Travolta, a movie scene, and so then I was playing high stakes poker. I was exhausted. And I remember walking around the casino down in Mississippi, and I almost passed out. And I went back upstairs, and I slept 14 hours. And so I was kind of coming off that, and just packing too much in there. And so I went in there. The last 3 times I filmed at Hustler, probably 3 of the most tired days of my life. And and each time I felt compelled to show up and play. And so, yeah, I just played poorly. Just gave it away and quit early.
Yeah, and we said at the beginning of the stream, sleep is the number one performance enhancing drug in poker. So I understand the exhaustion. More recently, I remember you coming to the defense when I was live at the bike. You came back to play. You had a very, I wouldn't say heated against personally, but you had a very big hand against Eric Hicks. And then later on, Hicks went on to make some statements about Nick Vertucci in a very negative way. And I'm not 1000% positive, but I know Hicks did not return to the game the next day. Whether that was a production call or your call, but you came to the defense of Nick Vertucci, and you made it very adamant that he is a good guy to start that stream. Did you block Hicks from playing that day?
I told Eric on the stream that day. I said, hey, I don't know. I don't know if I want you to play tomorrow. I told him on the stream. You can just go back and look. As far as Nick Vertucci, I don't know what. Cairo, if you're going to ask these questions, you probably have to get the context right. I think he was accusing Nick of what? I don't remember. I defended Nick for something. Do you remember what it was?
I think he was trying to question his credibility in the security of games. And then you started the stream off the very next day and came to the defense and say, hey, look, I know Nick. Nick is a good guy. And
yeah, that's it. I can't blanket defend anybody on the planet, Cairo. If you're going to say, no. So, let's.
I was trying to alley-oop you.
Yeah, let's not. Yeah, but that's not. I don't want the alley-oop where I land in shit when I land. Okay, so it's not.
Fair enough, Phil. I understand where you're coming from.
I think he had said something. I think Eric had said something along the lines of. Said something along the lines of Nick Vertucci had lost all these times in a row after they changed security systems, and it wasn't true. Number one, and number two, it almost made Nick has a really good reputation. He has a great reputation, and I didn't want to see anybody talking shit about somebody else. I don't like it when people attack people with really great reputations with a false narrative.
Yeah, and I think that's what I really love about you, Phil, is that you don't have fear to stand up for what you think is right and for the people that you have love for. And I think characteristic-wise, that's what makes you.
All right, Carol, how much more time do we have here? I'm going to go play a tournament soon. So what do you
All
want
right,
to do?
we have one last.
You want to ask a few more? You want to ask some? What's your ending thing here?
We have a segment.
Minutes.
We have one segment to go and one last question. We'll wrap this up quickly though. Through the years, you've worked with Houston Curtis. I know you guys have had a long relationship with him, creating your DVD series, and you guys had some prop bet pilots that you guys have filmed. I wanted to know more about how you guys got connected, and do you guys have anything coming up in the future?
Houston and I played poker together, 03, 04, 05. We played in some very big games in Hollywood. I only played maybe twice in that game or something. I remember I won $357,000. And they were surprised I didn't want to fly back the next week. And the reason why is I was traveling so much, and I was busy. I was working 360 days. It was just way too much. And so I wasn't willing to fly to LA to play a poker game. It was just going to be unscheduled time away from my wife and kids. So for me, my wife and my kids are number one, and being with them is number one. Now, lately, Houston and I have talked about, he's working for Bally's, and we've talked about doing a prop bet show. And I said, hey, listen, Bally's was talking about hiring me, and one funny thing we thought we might do is what that I came up with is start exactly midnight with me shooting 10 free throws. So the prop bet show has to be live because people have to be able to bet. So I said you can bet on the first free throw, the second, or all 10. And how many is Phil going to hit? And so I thought that's kind of an entertaining way to start a prop bet show. And then there's a bunch of other stuff. Bally's bought the Tennis Channel, and so they can do stuff there. And then I thought, man, there's just so many fun props that we could do, and live. And so yeah, we're still talking about potentially doing that, as well as some poker streaming stuff with Houston Curtis and Bally's.
Yeah, I'm excited to see you do prop bets because I would love to have prop bets with you. Phil, you are the professor of poker. You know so much about the game. We have one last segment that I want to do with you. Very fun. A lot of people these days, they make these tier lists. I put together a grouping of players, and we have an elite tier, a pro tier, a luck box tier, a recreational tier, and a fish tier. As I name off some of these players, can you help me put them into tiers together?
Pass. Next segment.
Next segment. I figured it would be some fun. Yeah. All right. Fair enough, Phil. If you want to pass on that, we can pass on that. And if we're gonna just wrap this up, lastly, I just want to thank you, Phil. I know you have tournaments to get to and play. I thank you very much. We look forward to having you on Live at the Trop when that gets started out in Vegas. Good luck with the WSOP. And if nobody loves you, Kyra loves you. Anything else for the people watching that you have coming up?
No, but I'm looking forward to the World Series of Poker. I think we're going to have the biggest numbers in history. I think the main event, everybody says that the main event will be the biggest main event in history. I believe that. I would actually bet on that. I think it's going to be really fun, World Series. And, I will say this. I checked into the Ari on May 19th. I'm checking out July 19th. So, the World Series starts next Tuesday. Not tomorrow, next Tuesday. And I'm looking forward to, resting up and being ready and practicing.
Do you know how many events you're going to be entering, or is it just kind of come as you go?
No idea.
Yeah, I figured it's more of a feel thing with the sleep.
For me, it's yeah. I mean, I would never have predicted in the 2021 World Series that I'd have 5 final tables in the first 21 days, and I was so tired. I like all my adrenaline was gone. I couldn't even see straight. It was so weird. And then luckily my sons were scheduled to fly in that weekend, and I was able to take 2 or 3 days off. And so I know my sons are also scheduled to fly in, 3 weeks in or something like that. I don't know, Mike DeMouse Matisow believes in good signs. It was fun that one of my stocks went crazy today. And right before the 2021 series, one of my stocks went crazy today. Went crazy right before the 21. And this is not investment advice. And I own a ton of shares, but it's fun to watch IONQ, the quantum computing company, pop up 2 points today. And, and I hope that that's a sign of things to come. So Mattis, I would say good sign.
We hope all your investments go. We have one last question from last week with none other than Matt Berkey. He has a question for you, Phil. I do have another episode of Good for the Game coming up next week with Phil Hellmuth. Is there anything, Matt, you would like to ask Phil as we do a pass the question from this episode to the next one?
What can I ask Phil? Ask him what he thinks fair odds are for a bracelet bet for me, only playing no limit hold'em events 10K and below, and then ask him what he thinks fair odds of him winning a bracelet are.
Okay. Did you catch that?
I heard that. And first of all, hello, Berkey. Again, Berkey has a great Berkey has a great reputation, right? So my friends love Berkey. So that's a very important thing, right? He and I might disagree on strategies, and we might disagree on, a lot of things, but I've still invited him to my last 7 or 8 streams. I don't know what the odds are, and I don't like to predict those things. So the problem is that if I say the odds are too low, I piss somebody off. If I say they're too high, and so, I just kind of avoid that. And then I avoid making predictions about myself. I don't have time to think about anybody else. I have time to think about me playing great poker every day. And I have the luxury and I've earned the right to be able to focus on playing great poker every day from May 30th until July 18th. And that's all I'm going to be thinking about. And I don't want to think about anybody else. I don't want to have bets with anybody else. I just want to play great poker every day and see what happens.
Well said, Phil. Thank you so much for your time. I know you got to get on to go play. You know, if nobody loves you, who loves you?
Cairo loves you.
Positivity. Thank you, Phil. Have a good one. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys so much for tuning in and asking questions in the chat and enjoying this conversation between me and Phil Hellmuth. If you guys are enjoying this, make sure you hit the like button. Share this one out for our new series, Good for the Game, hosted by myself, Cairo Loves You. We'll be back next week with another episode with none other than Eric Person, the Maverick, owner of Maverick Gaming himself and the polarizing figure in this poker world. If you guys are looking forward to this, please go ahead and do that. I know we didn't get an opportunity to do the poker rankings, but I am excited to see if you guys would like to rank some of these players into these tiers. I shared a link into the chat room. Go ahead and click that link, create your tier list, tag me and Live at the Bike on Twitter, and we will repost those and share those out. We hope you guys can all participate and enjoy that. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If nobody loves you, Cairo loves you. We're out.